Hello friends, welcome to Challenger Tabletop. I'm Christopher and I have my light in camera. Alright, there we go, that's a little better. Welcome to Challenger Tabletop. This is another paint and chat stream where we'll be talking about Warhammer while I paint some miniatures. Batch painting actually today. The last 2 nights I've been working on some Genestealer Cults Aberrants. And let's see, looks like I somehow closed my chat. There we go. Alright, so let's take a look at these guys. I have them just here on the table. Let's go ahead and bring them down to my painting desk. And we're actually trying to finish 11 miniatures tonight. Not sure we'll get through it, but they are well underway. Let's take a look, switch to the painting cam here, and I'll show you where we're at. So these are my aberrants, starting with the Abominant, and looks like my camera is kind of blocking the light. Let's see if that's a little better. There we go. Alright, so here's the Abominant. He's sort of the special aberrant. And did I get some thumbprint on that guy while I was priming him? Maybe. And you can see I painted some white and pink on him, and I painted the base gray. The Abominant has a little Genestealer Familiar on the base with him. And then here's what the Aberrants are looking like. Here's the Aberrant Leader, the Aberrant Hypermorph. I've got 2 of those. Let's find the other one. The Hypermorph has kind of a barbed tail, which you see here. And here's the other one, armed with a heavy hammer here. And they're all at pretty much the same level. I did go into a tad of little bit of touch-up, painting some toenails and things that I missed earlier. So I've got some aberrants here with some power picks. And here's 2 more. I think those are the ones I was working on last night. Yeah. And in some cases where they only had 2 arms, I went ahead and added a 3rd Genestealer arm just so they'd all be consistent, having 3 arms each. And then a couple more aberrants with heavy hammers. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are the models we're going to be finishing up today, hopefully. And as for what's left to paint, clearly they're like little clothing that they have on there. They're weapons, the hammers and picks. And they have little chains around their neck. And what else? Some of them have Genestealer Cult icons. And the Abominant here, he has like a little icon hanging from his robe there. We'll paint that gold. He also has some more chains on him. And his little familiar has some clothing. And if I zoom in, he's got some kind of like bag hanging from his belt with some skulls in it, looks like. And he also has some armor on. Like this sort of ribbed thing you see, like a cod piece is like an armor plate. And I also noticed, I think the Hypermorphs have some armor on one leg. So there you can see that. So I'll be painting that well, and some hanging from their belt as well. So maybe I'll start with that because there's not a whole lot of that armor. And I'm doing the armor black. So gonna just be using good old Citadel base paint, Abaddon Black. And let's dive right in. I'm wondering if I should use my smallest brush for this because there's some kind of hard to reach areas. I've been having a little trouble where this brush, I don't treat my brushes the best. And notice I'm getting some kind of splitting at the end of this small layer brush. So that's unfortunate, but we'll see how it does. And then today's topic, thought we could discuss the recent announcements from Games Workshop Warhammer Chapter Approved. This is basically a update to the Warhammer game that comes out periodically, and they've now announced it's going to be coming out every 6 months, so at least we'll have a regular schedule of knowing when to expect those. Gonna try adding some water here to help this paint flow around where I'm trying to put it. There we go. We can paint this icon black. It'll get gold in a minute, but black is a pretty good base for gold. Kind of hard for me to tell where this plate ends and where the belt begins. I think he's got it hanging from a belt. Oh yeah, and this guy's wearing overalls. That's kind of funny. So I guess we'll have to paint some little clips and buttons on those. Wonder if I'm getting off camera when I go down like that. Probably not. Alright, hard for me to look at the model down like this and look up at cam and realize if I'm getting off camera a bit. Well, now doing the same thing on this guy. Oh, we are getting off camera. With the miniature anyway. So the announcements we had for Chapter Approved. Chapter Approved, one of the things they do when it comes out is kind of like update the point levels of Warhammer 40k. And the points in the game are basically how much each of these models costs you to field it on the table in-game point values. So if you and your opponent are playing a 2,000 point army, each model you field as part of your army takes up some of that 2,000 points. So if the points on a model go down, it lets you bring more units alongside it. And if point values go up, it limits how much more you can bring. Like, you know, if your models go up by 20 points, you got to take something out of your army to keep it at, under 2,000, for instance. And like in my game tomorrow, I'm going to be playing a game against Dominic, his Eldar versus my Dark Angels, and we're playing a 1,000 point game. So all the models and units in my army, their individual point values can't exceed 2,000 points combined. So pretty straightforward. Anyone who plays Warhammer already kind of has that down. But they gave us a preview of how points are going to be changing for several units. So that will be good news for most armies, bad news for just a few. As most of the point changes they announced are going to be point drops, not really increases so much. Just a few models seeing a point increase from what I saw. Well, there's some armor painted. I guess I still have to do the bit hanging from his belt. Get a little more black paint. So, I guess I'll go through some of the point changes they announced. They said that a lot of vehicles are going to be decreasing in points. And I wonder why that is. They must have felt like they want people to buy more vehicle kits, and maybe they felt like vehicles were not performing really well at the current levels. The fact that they could be tied up in melee and can't split up to, for the most part, can't split up to capture multiple objectives like a squad of infantry can. Maybe they aren't as multi-purpose. Most vehicles are kind of based around shooting and durability and not so much close combat fighting. Oh, I see he's got another armor plate on this other leg here. Let's see if we can paint that. So some of the vehicles that are dropping in points, they announced few are dropping by 10 points, including the Storm Speeder. And I do have a Storm Speeder. I have one built as a Storm Speeder Thunderstrike. And I have another one still in the box that's ready to build. And I was thinking of doing that as a Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. So as I might be running two of those, 10-point drop is pretty good news for me. Also dropping by 10 points are the Sisters of Battle tanks, the Immolator and the Exorcist. And the Leman Russ, the good old Leman Russ, dropping by 10 points. So that's good news. I actually have 5 of those. No, 4. 4 of those, so very good news for me. Currently, they were all in use as part of my Genestealer Cults army. I was using them as either Brood Brothers or Cult Leman Russ. And I'm considering moving all 4 of them to my new Imperial Guard army, which is going to be a Planetary Defense Force. Probably running a custom regiment with those. Alright, well, let's move on to the other Hypermorph. He's the one with the improvised weapon. Here he is. And then some vehicles dropping by 15 points. We've got the Gladiator tank. Haven't really seen that one played yet. Maybe I've seen it in a game on YouTube, but definitely seems like it could use a boost, as I'm not seeing it too much. So Gladiator tank dropping by 15 points. Also the Plague Burst Crawler. Now that one, it seems like it was already pretty popular as it was, but maybe people are feeling it was a little overcosted. And then also dropping by 15 points, the Night Scythe. That's a Necron Flyer. And Orc Battle Wagons. So that's great news for me. I do have 3 scratch-built battle wagons built out of Plasticard. I went ahead and made them with the Cannon and Defrolla. And I've been kind of phasing them out, partly because they're scratch-built, so I haven't really wanted to showcase them on this stream as much. But also because I felt like they weren't really earning their points back. Their damage output was pretty small. They're kind of big and hard to maneuver around the battlefield. And they do a great job of transporting troops. They're open-topped, which is pretty rare to have a big, tough, open-topped vehicle that can carry 20 infantry. So I like that about them, but I was kind of phasing them out of my list. Having them drop 15 points is exciting. And we also had a couple of vehicles drop by 20 points, so that's a pretty sizable point drop. The Hemlock Wraith Fighter for Eldar and the Doom Scythe, kind of the other Necron Flyer, dropping by 20 points, so they must want people to buy more of those kits, because that's a pretty huge point drop. But kind of exciting if you have any of those models to get them on the table at a lower point cost. Lets you bring a bigger army. Alright, well that's the black armor pads painted. I don't think there's any more. Let me take a quick look through the infantry here. Ah, this guy has some. So does he. Ah, he has one. Okay. Alright, so I did find a few more armor pads to paint. We'll get some black paint on those pretty quick, if my brush cooperates. And maybe I'll pour myself a little more coffee. Tried to sleep in today to get ready for my overnight shift, but I'm feeling a little tired. Did some yard work at Mom's. Tried to help out over there. Okay, this guy's got one little armor pad up on his upper leg here. There were some other point changes announced. We had a bunch of point changes for Necrons, and there may have also been a lot of point changes for Custodes, but I didn't review those, so sorry about that if we got some Custodes players in the house. I'm sorry I didn't double check what your point changes announced were, but take a look on Warhammer Community. I think there's an article up there about it. But for Necrons, I did have a look, and it looked like that'll be interesting. I know a few Necron players, including my friend Mark. Mark D. Alright, there we go. Not the Mark I played on stream the other day, although if I think about it, he might have said he plays Necrons as well. I think he said he's working on a Necron army, and he was kind of trying to figure out how he was going to theme them. And one suggestion I came up with was based on our narrative campaign, where one of the Necron tombs is inside a forge moon, like a Mechanicus forge moon. I thought that might provide some kind of inspiration. I don't know exactly how you would blend those together, but maybe having, I don't know, destroyed Mechanicus units on the ground underneath your troops, that would get kind of expensive pretty quick. But hey, R.S. Splendid, welcome back. Great to see you. Discussing some point changes from the chapter approved announcements. And I was going to get into the other changes to the game that they've announced. Haven't really gotten into that yet. How's your night going? Are you doing some hobby painting tonight? Or what are you up to? I did some yard work earlier today and gonna work overnight tonight. Hey, thanks for the follow, Fog B-Side. Really appreciate it. Welcome to the channel. Tonight we're painting, trying to finish batch painting 11 models, 10 Genestealer Aberrants, and an Abominant, basically the hero of the Aberrants. And talking about the latest Games Workshop chapter approved announcements, I was just starting with point drops and point changes. And I just mentioned the vehicles that are getting point drops. And I was just going to go over the Necron point changes that they announced. I know a few Necron players. They said down 5 points are going to be pretty much all the destroyers. Scorpek destroyers, Ophidian destroyers, Lockhurst destroyers. Oh, Blunden, I got my Soulblight Gravelord box and started building them. The assembly part of the hobby is a bit rough. I didn't like assembly at first, but I like it more and more as time goes by personally. And all the mold line cleaning and trying to glue things in the right place, yeah, it can be tough. Fog B-Side, I still got so many models to build before I start painting. That's a good feeling. That's fun. Well, you got something to do then. Got your hobby time worked out for at least a few days. I have a few things to build myself. I have a Drukhari Void Raven Bomber and a Space Marine Storm Speeder to build. And those have been kind of sitting on my desk for a while behind me here. Oh, you can just see them in the corner. And what else is over there? Oh, and next to them is a little cool little metal chest my mom got me for Christmas with a dragon on top. Very cute. Let's see, what else did it's dropping? Oh, B-Side says mold line cleaning is oddly calming. Well, you probably get some people sending you their miniatures to clean mold lines on then. That's one thing I do find very tedious. Sometimes, honestly, I even just don't bother. Or I'll only clean them if they look really bad. Or sometimes I'll even go ahead and get as far as priming the model before I come back and realize some of the mold lines were too bad to ignore. Alright, we're getting there. Just one more guy to paint these little armor plates on. So also dropping points for Necrons. Doomsday Ark going down by 10 points. I think that's their transport. Or is that the one with the giant gun instead of a transport capacity? And then this is some good news for Necron players. Down by 30 points, Monolith and the Silent King. I was already seeing everybody running the Silent King with their Necrons, so I'm kind of surprised he's getting a big points drop. And Monolith, that's good news. I think a lot of players were kind of skipping the Monolith, feeling it was overcosted, and plus it's like, I think it's a Lord of War, so you have to take it in a special detachment. And Obelisk down by 40 points, and Tesseract Vault down by 50 points. The Obelisk and the Tesseract Vault are kind of like similar to the Monolith, but just different kinds with more abilities, I assume. Some point drops for Astartes. I don't know if anyone was really asking for these, but Mephiston down 15 points. I guess down 5 points are Black Knights and Thunderwolf Cavalry. And Dark Angels players were saying Black Knights are overcosted, so that's probably good news. Also for Dark Angels, the Nephilim and Dark Talon, those are flyers, going down by 15. And the Corvus Blackstar, the flyer for Deathwatch, going down by 15. So that's exciting. And then we had a few models going up in points. Chaplain on a bike, Contemptor Dreadnought with Volkite Culvern. The Nemesis Dreadnought going up by 10 points. That I feel is probably warranted, as people were, I would say, spamming those or maxing those out in almost every Grey Knight list, at least competitively. Volkite Volglare, it's some kind of mini knight. And Lightning Locks. I really don't know much about those, but they're something knights use that looks kind of like an armiger. And Foul Blightspawn going up by 15 points. So that's pretty big. I think Foul Blightspawn's like a character for Death Guard. And just glancing at his data sheet, he had Fights Last as an ability that he could put on a unit. So I don't blame him for raising his points, and his weapon looked incredible too. It was like a auto-hitting flamer that was strength 7 and damage 2. So he was, I think, 75 points before. It seemed a little undercosted, so I could see that. And Hive Guard going up by 5 points. That's a Hive Fleet Tyranid unit that I think everyone was saying was kind of almost an auto-take. I think they have a weapon that can fire without line of sight, and those are always usually really strong. And this is kind of a shock. Orc Rocket Truck Squig Buggy going up by 20 points. That seems like a big increase. And Beast Boss on Squigosaur going up by 30 points. And I'm not so surprised by that. I think the Beast Boss was maybe undercosted. He was part of the sort of new block of orcs that came out with the Beast Snagas. And it seemed like they kind of gave a ton of really good abilities and great stratagems to all those units. So I'm not surprised that they were, at least the Squigosaur boss was kind of undercosted. So that's all the point changes. And not that exciting. I mean, we're kind of used to it at this point in the Warhammer community that points are going to constantly change. So nothing really surprising there. And I would say most of the changes seem pretty appropriate. I don't know about all the vehicles getting cheaper, but maybe they're not doing too well in the meta. I'm not sure. I'm not someone who super closely follows the tournament lists and tournament meta, but I know it is important to keep the game as balanced. At least I think it's important to keep the game as balanced as they can. Sounds like Blundin's working on Age of Sigmar, yeah? Have you been playing the game, and how do you like it? Be curious to hear. I have not yet gotten into Age of Sigmar at all, as my Warhammer 40k hobby is a bit too dominant of my time and money and attention. But I've been really enjoying 40k too, so I did play Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, the game that they sort of retired to introduce Age of Sigmar, and I had several armies for Warhammer Fantasy, so when Sigmar came out I was still feeling kind of bummed about them discontinuing the game I played. I've really kind of resisted jumping on Age of Sigmar ever since, partly out of feeling disgruntled about that. First army, I'm brand new to the hobby. Well, that's exciting. Graveblight, right? Soul Blight. Oh, that's cool. I think they have the models that are kind of like ghosts. If my Age of Sigmar knowledge is up to par. We had some other new announcements with for Warhammer 40k, including a change to the way super heavy detachments are going to work. Apparently bringing something like a Necron Monolith, as long as it matches your army faction, it's going to refund you 2 command points, so that's kind of good news. Going to make it a lot easier to bring super heavy auxiliaries and stuff like that, which is exciting for me as I got my first super heavy tanks. I have one for Imperial Guard or Genestealer Cult, Brood Brothers, I guess, and I have one for my Dark Angels now. I was very excited to paint a Falchion on stream recently. Very cool super heavy tank for Dark Angels or any Space Marine faction. Moving on to other announcements. So they have announced that primary missions are going to change for Warhammer 40k. Previously, each mission had a primary, which was basically hold 1 objective every turn, or else hold 2 or hold 3. So usually if it was hold 1, you'd get 5 points if you're holding 1 objective. You'd get another 5 points if you're holding 2, and you'd get another further 5 points if you're holding more than your opponent, up to a maximum of 15 a turn. Super heavy, like Titans. I think Titans do qualify as super heavy, but generally, like really big tanks, or like for Necrons, they have a monolith, which is kind of like a floating pyramid. Basically, any of the models that are like a foot long are going to be a super heavy. And I think Knights do qualify, and for Knights, basically, they only have super heavies, or maybe Armigers might not be super heavy. They're kind of like the mini Knights. But most factions have 1 or more super heavies to choose from. I know Imperial Guard has a bunch. And a lot of the super heavy units are actually Forge World models. So Forge World's kind of like Games Workshop's sister company that makes large models, including the Titans. And usually if you want to bring a super heavy, you can't bring it in the main detachment with the rest of your army. You have to put it in a detachment by itself, called either a super heavy auxiliary detachment if you just want 1, or I think it's called a super heavy detachment, where you can bring up to 3. And bringing those extra detachments costs you command points, which are basically your spell points that you use during the game to trigger special abilities. And having to spend your command points in order to bring those units at all was kind of a investment that a lot of players were hesitant to take, because a lot of times the models are already cost a ton of points, sometimes too many points, and then to have to give up your command points that you would use for special abilities as well, even if it's just 3 or I don't know how many. I think it's 3 to bring a single, maybe it's 2 to bring a single super heavy. So like if I wanted to bring my Baneblade tank, which is a really big tank for Imperial Guard, I think I would have to pay 2 command points, but they've announced now that with the new system you'll be able to get those points refunded, at least 2 of them. So kind of good news, going to make it a little easier to bring those kind of units in the game. And I think super heavy models are pretty fun and exciting. They're usually not super good, like they're kind of easy to kill compared to how many points they cost. And a lot of players will actually ignore them in the game, figuring, well, I don't want to have to fire my whole army at it, so I'll just pretend it's not there and play the mission ignoring it. And sometimes that even works out. So I think maybe they did need a little bit of a boost of some kind. I'm putting a little bit of a silver dry brush. Oh, I think I was getting off camera there. I'll just try to stay over here. But I think they did need a little bit of a boost, as you weren't seeing them too often. And it's, yeah, exciting news for me, as I have a few that I would like to get on the table. I have tried using the Baneblade in 1 or 2 games, and the one I remember, it got blown up turn 1 before I ever got to go. So, doesn't have a great track record in my experience. All right, painting the power picks now. And so that's one announcement, is it's going to be easier to field super heavy units. And then they announced they're going to change the primary missions a bit. So instead of just having a primary mission, which is like hold one objective, hold two objectives, and hold more objectives than your opponent, that's still going to be there, but it will max out at 12 points a turn instead of 15. And there will be a second primary objective, which is kind of funny, kind of an oxymoron. Like, you would think that would be a secondary objective if there's two of them. But there will be two primary objectives. That will be one. Will still be hold one, hold two, etc. Hold more than your opponent. But the other primary objective is going to be dependent on the mission. So we had something like this already in the missions, which was each mission would have a mission secondary, and then you would have to pick 3 secondary objectives. So you would have your primary, and then you'd have 3 secondaries that you'd get to pick. And if you so chose, you could pick the mission secondary or not. But the mission secondaries were really hit or miss. There were some that were so easy to do that you would always take them, and there were some that were so hard to do you would never take them. And usually either both players would agree it's good and take it, or both players would agree it's bad and neither one would take it. But now they're saying that basically that second objective is going to be part of the primary, so you won't really have a choice about doing the second mission specific objective, as it will be your other primary. So the 2 primary missions will be basically mission specific, and then you'll still pick 3 secondaries, and they kind of clarified that at least 2 of them have to be from the main rule book or the campaign book that you're using, and the third one could be from your codex. And they announced that they're going to introduce some new secondary objectives for the factions that don't have a 9th edition codex yet. So if you are playing like Imperial Guard or Tyranids, you basically haven't had the choice of picking a army specific secondary because your codex is now. So now at least you'll have one secondary mission provided that you could pick. So that's good news. And I think that forcing players to use the sort of mission specific primary should be interesting. I don't feel like they're necessarily always very well written, as sometimes they're incredibly hard to actually achieve in the game. Just for instance, like, you'll have one which is an action that has to be completed by one of your units, and if a unit's completing an action, it can't fight or shoot or charge, and the action won't be completed until your next turn. So pretty much for a turn, your unit will be sitting there doing nothing, and your opponent will have a turn to shoot and kill it or charge it, and if they do, then it automatically fails the mission. So those are going to be pretty difficult. And then there will be some really easy ones, like get extra points if you're holding an objective on your opponent's side of the table, that basically don't require your troops to do any kind of action. It's just something you either pull off automatically or you don't. Not that that would be easy. It's kind of hard to take objectives off your opponent, but at least it doesn't require an action that completes a turn later. So kind of interesting announcements. It's definitely going to shake up the game. I do feel like Games Workshop is making an effort to keep the game fresh and balanced and relevant, and to improve it continuously. Seems like it takes a while to get all the codexes out. Yeah, too long. Usually there's like a 2-year wait between codexes on average. That's just sort of a guesstimate. But some factions have really been languishing. Like I would say, at least Imperial Guard and Tyranids have had to wait a really long time. And it's almost like it's almost a joke how much the community like cares about having codex updates. It like comes up every single time. People are like, well, here's what we actually want is stop ignoring factions for so long. And so, you know, if Games Workshop want to make their community happier, they could just, you know, update all the codexes. At least the ones that haven't come out since last edition. Because really that kind of hurts those players who don't have access to up-to-date tools, and their rules were kind of written for a different edition, so things don't really work as well anymore. My Genestealer cults were that way, and we're just getting our codex right now. I don't even have mine yet, but it is released, and mine's in the mail, I guess. So that's at least fun when your codex finally does come out. And oftentimes a faction will jump from being one of the weakest to one of the most powerful when they get a new codex. And that can kind of invigorate the community to play and collect that faction again. But one of the... Oh man, I'm doing pretty bad at keeping my model on camera tonight. One of the funny ones was Drukhari, or Dark Eldar, had to wait a really long time between codexes for a while, and didn't get any new model releases either. But it kind of hardened up the Drukhari community, where in order to basically stay relevant, you had to really play your army really well, and there were kind of only a few builds that were effective. Basically, Drukhari have open-top transports, so you can have a whole squad embarked in a transport vehicle, and they can still shoot out because it's open-topped. And they can also load quite a few special and heavy weapons into their squads. So one thing that worked, and for a long time this is kind of the way to play Drukhari, was to load a ton of, 3 special and heavy weapons into a squad and put them in a raider transport, and then just sort of spam that. Hey, Vorkash, welcome back. Good to see you. Welcome back, Mark. I think you play Necrons, or you're working on a Necron army, Vorkash. We got some points drops for Necrons. A bunch of stuff dropping in points. Blunden, do you already have your army list built? So let's see. I think I want to change up my army list from what I played last time. This is a game I'm playing tomorrow versus Eldar, and I got beaten pretty soundly with my Dark Angels last game, so I think I better change up my list. And I might throw in some Deathwing Terminators. Deathwing Terminators are very strong right now. They got a pretty serious buff in the last codex, where basically they can never be wounded on a dice roll of 1, 2, or 3. And I have about 10 or 15 Terminators I could bring, so if I do go that route, that would definitely, I think, enhance my list. But I'm going to be working overnight tonight, so I'll have some time to think about it. And I'm planning to change it up. Vorkash, yes. So you are working on your Necrons, and my newly acquired Custodians got a point drop too. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Any big important point drops for them? I saw there was an article, but I didn't get a chance to read it. But if there's anything you want to shout out that you thought was really cool, definitely mention it. And Vorkash, are you working on some hobby stuff tonight? He has a huge Titan. I keep wanting to say Warlord Titan, but I think you actually are making something kind of different than that he's got to work on. And he just did like an unboxing video recently, and I think you still have to assemble it, right? Do I play a successor chapter for my Dark Angels? No, I play them as standard Dark Angels. But I do have my Phobos units painted in black armor with just one green shoulder pad. But my explanation is that they are just customizing their armor for night operations. But I do play them as regular Dark Angels. It might make sense to play them as, Knights of Caliban or something. There is a black and green successor, I think, that might be more appropriate for me. Oh, looks like I missed an armor plate on the back of this guy. Where'd my black paint go? Let's fill that in real quick. Oh, Vorkesh is driving back from California tonight. Wow. Well, that's quite a drive. Drive safe out there. A lot of bad drivers on the roads these days. Or always, I suppose. Until we get everybody in self-driving cars, which I'm not pushing for, but I feel like it's coming one day. Won't that be funny when you have to pay higher insurance if you don't have a self-driving car? But that's probably what it would take to get people to switch. Looks like I have some cleanup to do on the back of this, what's he called? Familiar. Where I got a little wild with the pink. Oh, I think I actually dropped him while I was painting him pink. Nearly everything got a point drop, Vorkesh says, for Custodes. Wow. Well, that's going to be interesting, because Custodes are one of the classic elite armies which never has many models on the table and is always significantly outnumbered. So it'll be interesting that they got point drop across the board. That's going to be fun for Custodes players. Give them one more custodian on the table, probably. I'm joking. You'll probably let him field an entire new unit. All right. Well, I think we'll continue on with silver. Making some progress here. I guess I missed the back of this little street sign. Let's fill that in. RS Splendid, didn't their codex just come out? Already point drops? That's a good question. I think the codex is still on the way. And Blendon, I bet these point drops are actually to put them in line with the new codex. I think it's not quite out yet. But they have announced how some of the new mechanics are going to work for the army. Where you're going to have kind of like different fighting styles that you pick before the battle. And you kind of switch between them from round to round. Seems kind of interesting. Similar to what the Necrons have and the Mechanicus, where they sort of pre-program their troops and then switch between those during the game. Alright, so many of these guys to paint. Still got to do silver on 7 more guys. Looking forward to trying these aberrants out in the game. I have used some kind of big stompy type troops like this in some of my other armies. In my Drukhari, I've got some, what are they called? Grotesques, who I think are pretty similar in terms of stats and abilities. And I have some knobs for my orcs. I don't think they're quite as tough as these guys. Knobs just have 2 wounds apiece. They're pretty much like 2-wound orc boys almost, but well, with a extra attack, extra strength. So, not too far off. Vorkesh. Yes, their codex just came out, but that was done before their internal rebalancing. New chapter approved has many new point updates for nearly every faction. Interesting. So you're saying basically the points values in the codex were probably figured out a month or 2 ago before they started doing all the rebalancing? Interesting. Well, I would be kind of shocked in a bad way if they are totally changing the point values from the codex just a week or 2 after it came out. Seems like they should have figured that out before they printed it, but I guess they do kind of have to manage a lot of moving parts with this game all at the same time, so can kind of be forgiven a little bit. Well, I know what would help me is if I move my whole painting mat over because I think that's just naturally where I want to hold the miniature. There we go. Had a lot of fun playing Warhammer with Vorkesh the other day. Played against your Templars, yeah? Mark's Templars of the Broken Shard, our Space Marine chapter that kind of his own custom creation, successor chapter that specializes in fighting in sort of the far edges of the galaxy without a lot of Imperium support. So they're masters at scavenging their equipment and repairing their own equipment using what they can find on the battlefield. And had some really fun little cool conversions, like one of his Space Marine veterans was wielding like an orc chainsword, and had a variety of like jump packs from different legions or chapters. When did GW ever put out a set of rules that didn't need sobering change right away? Yeah, good point. It's kind of their style, huh? Well, we did get some other announcements. So I was talking about how primary mission is going to change. Basically, the mission secondary is going to become more like a second primary. And the primary of holding objectives, take and hold, is going to be worth only a maximum of 12 points a turn. So in order to max out your primary score, I think you'll have to accomplish the other mission primary to some extent. And then you'll still have 3 secondaries on top of that. And then what else did they announce? Oh, yeah, kind of a big announcement. You're no longer going to be able to run different sub-factions side by side in different detachments from the same faction. So if you're playing Space Marines, you can't have a detachment of Dark Angels fighting alongside a detachment of Blood Angels, for instance. And if you're playing Imperial Guard, you can't have a detachment of Cadians fighting alongside a detachment of Catachans. And at first I thought, well, I guess my first thought was that's really sad for orcs, because orcs like to do that, have different clans fighting side by side. And it's kind of like thematic for orcs, because an orc Wa is kind of like an army of orcs that will absorb other smaller, weaker clans that it comes across. So the idea of multiple orc clans fighting side by side is pretty normal in the fluff or in the backstory of the game. And so that was kind of disappointing for orcs. And then I was very worried about it for Imperial Guard, because I have ordered some sort of elite troops for my Imperial Guard, basically Scions. And it seemed like you weren't going to be... Oh, you got to drive. All right. No problem, Vorkesh. It seemed like it was going to be bad for Imperial Guard, because they have elite units, Scions, or like, what were their old ones called? Kasserkin were kind of the original Scions. And they are kind of supposed to be fighting alongside regular Imperial Guard as like the elite vanguard. But apparently you'll still be able to use them together, because Imperial Guards have a regiment keyword, and Scions actually have like a Scions regiment keyword. So apparently that's enough of a difference that you'll still be able to combine them. And then the other faction that was very worried about this was Drukhari, because it's very standard to play Drukhari with basically they have 3 different wings to their army: Cabal, Coven, and Cult. But for the same reason, you'll still be able to combine those. So nothing to panic about for Drukhari players. But however, I guess what you won't be able to do is run 2 different covens side by side, which a lot of players were doing that. So overall, I would say I'm not too worried about this change. The people it would be worst for is orc players who have like part of their collection painted as bad moons and part of their collection painted as goths or speed freaks or something like that. And I think most players would be totally fine with them just picking one of those clans and just running everything as that clan, even though some of them are painted differently. It's not really going to confuse anybody to just remember that you're running a single clan. So, not the end of the world. And I think it'll be good. I personally was not a huge fan of players running their armies like that, trying to get the most out of every unit by having every unit be a custom sub-faction that enhances it. So now whatever sub-faction you pick, you'll kind of have to take its advantages and its disadvantages, and you won't be able to put absolutely every single unit in the sub-faction that makes it the strongest. So I think that's good. I think that's fair. Pretty happy with that announcement. Once I realized that it wasn't going to mess up my plans to run Imperial Guard and Scions together. And, oh, this was kind of fun. They announced that there's going to be a change to the way fortifications work. And this is actually a change that matches a house rule that I was already using, which is that when you're going to place down a fortification, we had a house rule that if you want to, you can pick up one of the pieces of terrain in your deployment zone and replace it with the fortification. And this is kind of important because they came out with a rule that said that fortification has to be 3 inches away from any other area terrain or even obstacles. And that meant that basically if your deployment zone was crowded with terrain and obstacles, then you may not have anywhere to place your fortification that you brought as part of your army. So I thought it was kind of a needed house rule, and they're basically making that an official rule, except that it seems like the way that they've worded it is that you'll only be able to do that if there's literally nowhere for you to place your fortification. So they are going to somewhat restrict it in that way, where if you have a place you can place it, and just one spot, for instance, then you have to place it there. But if you have nowhere to place it, then you can pick up a piece of terrain. So yeah, that seems all right. I'll have to decide if I want to keep the same house rule of being able to pick up a piece of terrain just because you choose to when you put it down, or if I want to go with this new rule as written, which is a little less flexible. Didn't have a whole lot else to talk about, but there was some stuff. We had some more previews of Tau stuff that's coming out. And I'm trying to think, Mark, did you say you're working on Tau? Can't remember. Somebody was. I think Mark might have said he's doing Tau, but he was going to do them as Tau auxiliaries who are all humans recruited to the Tau Empire. And so he was going to basically make a ton of customization and modification of the models so that they all look like humans. Tau have like cow hooves, so for feet, so they definitely don't look exactly human. And of course their faces are very non-human with like no nose, and they have some kind of weird Star Trek forehead design, like all the alien races in Star Trek seem to have like a funky forehead of one sort or another. Looks like this guy's got a little anklet on. Probably missed one of those on some of the other models. And then they did preview some... Okay, so one of the things they previewed for Tau is that they're going to have these prototype systems. And it sounds like similar to the Orc custom jobs. Not sure, but it seems like maybe you'll only be allowed to pick one for your whole army. And it basically replaces a weapon on a certain character and gives it kind of a souped up upgrade, as it's like an experimental prototype. I guess it's called Prototype Systems. And so that's kind of fun. In a way, it kind of seems similar to a relic. I wonder if it's actually going to literally be their style of a relic. In which case, it probably isn't really news, but they did preview several of them, and they looked kind of interesting. Mostly like extra damage, extra range, extra armor penetration, stuff like that. Alright, 2 more to do silver on. And we're coming up on 1 hour. Wow, it's going. And let's see, what else did they talk about for Tau? Oh yeah, a new Tau stratagem. They're previewing a new stratagem for Tau that lets them ignore invulnerable saves with, seems like, pretty much any weapon. But the limitation on it is that it's just for Borkan Sept. So that's one of the Tau sub-factions. And I don't know how popular that Sept is going to be, but may be very popular if people love that stratagem. It will let you ignore an invulnerable save for 2 command points. So not cheap, but could be really useful, especially if you're using it on a really powerful weapon against a really powerful target that has an invulnerable save. Then you're pretty much going to guarantee your damage is going to go through, which could be worth it. I haven't really got a philosophy about when stratagem or 1 command point is worth it, when it's not. Sometimes I'll spend a command point just for the chance of like 1 or 2 extra damage, it seems like, if I'm rerolling a damage roll or a weapon wound roll or something. Suppose it just depends on if it feels worth it in the moment. This guy also has a collar. I suppose we did have some other previews of stuff. They revealed the new Eldar Dark Reapers. So that was kind of fun. I think people are kind of making fun of the new Dark Reapers a little bit, saying that their skull masks look a bit cartoony, which I can kind of see. But it doesn't bother me. I always thought Dark Reapers are really cool, and I still like them. I think the new models look fun. The other, what are they called? Aspect Warrior that I really like are, I do like Striking Scorpions, but actually I think besides Dark Reapers, my other favorite is Fire Dragons. I've always been a fan of the really super hard-hitting ranged weapons like the Melt-A-Gun. And the Fire Dragons have sort of like a Melt-A-Lance, I think, that I always thought was really sweet. I always figured if, I've spent a ridiculous amount of time fantasizing about playing Eldar for someone who's never actually collected them. But I think I would run a lot of Fire Dragons and Striking Scorpions and Rangers if I was playing Eldar. Rangers seem good for holding back objectives, but not great. With any Eldar, you're pretty much trying to rely on a low toughness model to survive on an objective. That's kind of a gamble in the best of cases. And then presumably, I guess, Fire Dragons in vehicles and Striking Scorpions coming out of ambush to try to take your opponent's objectives. And that's kind of the plan I imagine myself going with. And maybe some jet bikes swooping around the periphery. Gotta have some jet bikes. I've always admired those models. I have a few jet bikes for my Dark Eldar. My collection of Dark Eldar started when one of my coworkers at Starbucks gave me a Start Collecting box that was about 10 or 15 years old from his parents' attic. And it had I think 5 jet bikes in it. And those are the only ones I've ever gotten, but I did paint them up and I use them pretty often. They're a cult unit for Drukhari. And I mostly play Cabal, so they're not exactly my favored sub-faction, but I do use them once in a while. Gonna have to get my Drukhari on the channel soon. So far I've just played Orcs. And my game against Dominic, where I played Dark Angels versus his Eldar, failed to stream, so we're actually going to be playing tomorrow. I guess that's my last announcement or thing to talk about here, is that I have a game coming up tomorrow. Going to be playing Warhammer 40k, 1000 point incursion battle between my Dark Angels and Dominic's Eldar. And Dominic plays Ulthuan Eldar, and his forces are led by Eldrad, who's kind of the supreme Farseer of the Eldar, or at least of Ulthwé. But he does play kind of a custom craft world of his own creation. He just uses the Ulthuan rules. And he also has a custom name and custom model for his Eldrad, which is, I think, very cool. And I can't remember the name of his craft world. I'll have to get him to remind me of that tomorrow. And in our first game, he won by a pretty good margin. And so I'll be looking to get some payback tomorrow. But it will be the first time that we hopefully successfully stream together. But he was going to be my first ever stream. So playing again, it's been about 3 weeks. And we don't have a lot of time to play against Dominic, because unfortunately he's currently in the military and he's filed orders or requests or whatever to redeploy. So he's hoping to get a chance to deploy to England. And I think he's only going to be in town for another couple weeks. So this might be the one time we successfully get him on stream. But the sort of backstory for our first game, decided to go on red handles on these weapons. Going with kind of Mechanicus red. That's what I'm going for. So the story for our first game was quite fun. Was that Dominic's Eldar, led by basically his version of Eldrad, who's like a Farseer who has, great ability to read the future. He foresaw that this Imperial planet that we played our battle on, Icarus II, was going to fall under the sway of the Genestealer cult, infection. And so they sensed that the infection was going to start because a shipment of tainted medical supplies was sent to the planet. So his Eldar showed up to attack the spaceport where the crates of tainted medical supplies were being kept. And his mission was basically to destroy the medical supplies to save the planet from becoming infected. So it was a very fun game in that my Dark Angels, theoretically thinking they're the good guys defending these medical supplies, if they had won the battle, they actually would have doomed the planet. And meanwhile, the Eldar, who were essentially the attackers, were trying to save the planet, the Imperial planet. So I thought that was a really fun dynamic as far as a lore background for the mission. And Dominic did end up winning, so he saved the planet. So I thought that was quite fun. And we talked a little bit about what the next battle would be. And I suggested maybe the Dark Angels are pursuing the Eldar as they try to retreat to the Webway through their Webway portal, or else they're like searching for the Webway portal and the Eldar are trying to interfere with their search. So it's like a kind of a search and destroy mission, trying to locate the Eldar Webway portal, and meanwhile the Eldar trying to protect their portal and keep it from being located. So he was talking about making like a portal as like a terrain piece. But he was also saying he didn't think he was going to have time. I told him, don't worry about it. This will be the mission where we're trying to find it. And if the Dark Angels win, then maybe we'll need it, as we could fight a battle at the Cygate. But for now, it'll just be sort of the hunt for the Cygate, or Webway portal. And could fight it like in the wilderness, probably. I hadn't thought much about what the table setup is going to be, but now that I think about it, we'll probably play on a wilderness board as opposed to a ruin board. And that's something I could set up tonight. I think I'll have some time before work. I could at least change over the table mat to forest. And maybe I'll even roll a random mission and start setting it up tonight. But maybe it would be better to leave that for tomorrow when he gets here. Because that way I could make my army list tonight without knowing the mission yet, which is, I think, how you should do it. Especially you don't want one player to have the advantage of knowing the mission when he makes his army list and the other player not. That would not be very fair. And I do like to try to keep our games as fair as possible. When Mark was here, he did a great job of setting up a nice balanced terrain board. And he was really nice to bring a whole set of terrain to use. Mark had some painted ruined walls, and he picked up a desert battle map for us to use to represent the uninhabited world of Icarus 4. So that was quite exciting. And it was first time for me fighting a battle on Icarus 4 in the campaign, so that was also cool. And Mark, I'm thinking we ought to keep playing more battles on Icarus 4, like the fact that you got that terrain mat and that it's kind of like the theme of your army is that they're stationed on that planet. Seems kind of appropriate. Instead of fighting against my orcs again, I could always break out the Dark Eldar or Genestealer cult to keep things fresh. Of course, it would make sense for the orcs to attack again, as orcs are never beaten. When you defeat orcs in battle, they tend to come back again looking for more fun because they've recognized that you're a worthy opponent. But from a story point of view, it might be fun to shake things up and say, okay, you fought off the orc attack, but now you've got to worry about something else. And there are Genestealer cults on a nearby moon. The battle we fought was on Icarus 4, which is the uninhabited planet with an Imperium secret weapons lab. And the next planet over, Icarus 5, is like a gas giant, and it has a moon that's totally overrun with Genestealer cult. And they've been in control of the moon, Transcendence Moon, for about 100 years, and they've gotten to the point where they're actually probably sending out, ships or like the tainted medical supplies or whatever in a bid to take over other planets. So it wouldn't be so out of the question to think a shipment of Genestealer cults could arrive on Icarus 4 and try and dock at the spaceport or the landing site or the landing pad for the secret weapons lab. And the Templars of the Broken Shard would have to fight them off. Plus, I'll have my new codex hopefully in a day or two. So that would be a great opportunity to put it to use. Sounds like could be fun. Not a lot for the Drukhari to do there, as the theme of my Drukhari is pretty much that they are all about hunting down the rarest exotic beasts and sort of natural poisons and toxins So an uninhabited planet wouldn't necessarily be on their radar even, if it doesn't have much in the way of like wildlife or flora or fauna. However, if the secret weapons lab is developing exotic poisons or toxins, maybe something to kill the Tyranids with, then that could be something that the Drukhari are interested in. Might be worth a raid of Icarus 4 to try to get their hands on some kind of exotic Tyranid killing poison. Generally, Drukhari do really well against Tyranids because of their poison weapons. And my Cabal that I play is what's it called? Poison Tongue. And basically they have the best poison is kind of their theme in a nutshell. So kind of in fitting with the in keeping with the lore I have for the army. Getting there. 2 more weapons to do red handles on. So I guess the other thing I've been thinking about doing on my night shift is setting up a Patreon for the channel. Oh, Vorkash. Could be an exotic rare sandworm that they're hunting and cross the patrol lines. Yeah, good point. I haven't seen Dune yet, but it could be good inspiration. I like you. I like the way you think. Just because the planet's uninhabited doesn't mean there's no life forms at all there. Maybe there could be some kind of incredibly toxic sandworm. That would be something they'd totally want to catch. All right, one more. So yeah, thinking about setting up a Patreon for the channel. And I know we're not very big yet. And I was talking to Dr. Rhino about it today on his channel briefly. He's another streamer who I like to watch. And I do advertise our stream on his Discord. Maybe someone saw us over there. But Dr. Rhino asked what was his advice as far as starting a Patreon, and he had a couple of good pieces of advice. First of all, he said don't expect a bunch of people to flock to it right away, which I wouldn't. And his other thing was, when you're coming up with your rewards for people who subscribe to your Patreon, be kind of stingy with your time. If you're promising like one-on-one whatever with people who support you at various tiers, keep in mind that if you get, 50 people supporting you at that tier and it takes an hour of your time once a month to, give whatever you promised, or, your one-on-one session or whatever, you're quickly going to run out of time in your month where you're just not going to be able to do that for that many people. So he said basically if you are doing something that's like a one-on-one kind of thing or is going to take a lot of your time, definitely limit how many of those tier subscriptions you're going to have available to where, you can afford the time to do whatever that is. And I suppose I need to think a bit about what I could do as far as subscriber rewards. I have wanted to have... Oh, Beetlejuice. Oh, so his reminds me of the sandworm from Beetlejuice, the like black and white one. That's what comes to mind. But yeah, I'm not sure what I should do in terms of subscriber rewards, if anything, to start. Of course, the classic one is get your name listed in the credits as a supporter, like on the end of videos or live streams or whatever. Be easy to do shout outs and that kind of thing. And I could offer maybe something like campaign support or help building your own campaign system or something like that. But I don't know how interesting that would be to people. Maybe I should spend some time tonight looking at other people's Patreons who do similar kind of content creation and see what they're doing. I know that Scary on Scarredcast, he's a Dark Eldar player, seems to have a pretty successful Patreon, and I think he offers like coaching. He's a Warhammer 40k coach, so clearly that's something that he's skilled at. Actually playing 40k and advising people on how to become better players. But those are some things I could do. Set up a Patreon, look up what are other people doing as Patreon rewards, and take some inspiration from that. And then I also need to look at setting up donations on Twitch again. When I first tried to do it, I think I didn't meet the qualifications. And I may still not, but I should at least review those and see what they are again. And the other thing I wanted to check out is setting up a professional PayPal. I heard a lot of people say you shouldn't take PayPal donations until you set up a professional PayPal, because otherwise it'll like give out all your personal information to anyone who donates to you. And I did try to set up a professional PayPal a couple months ago, and it was not successful right away. It seemed like everything was going all right, and then I got some kind of like rejected or whatever for like 90 days. And I spent a few minutes trying to figure out what exactly that was all about and what the deal is with that. And I've been using PayPal for quite a while, so maybe it was a mistake that I was trying to change my account from a regular account to a professional account instead of making a new one. I thought I was being smart, but I need to revisit that. Oh, hey, Renegade. Probably not worth it, really. Oh, you think? Maybe not. But I do need to do something to try and bring in some money. Besides, I am working 2 jobs now, and I'm thinking about maybe trying to find something more lucrative. I'm trained as a designer and an animator, and I've just been kind of working whatever kind of odd jobs. Working at a hotel and doing construction. And neither of those pay incredibly well. I did used to do animation for video games until the studio I was working at moved to Las Vegas, and I chose not to make that move. And kind of fortunately, because everybody who did move got laid off a year later, so there's that. Renegade, go for Twitch subs and bits. That should be safe. Thanks, Renegade. I think the Twitch... I guess I thought Twitch donations would be like through PayPal, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that's absolutely something I want to get going. How's it going, Renegade? Are you doing hobby stuff tonight? Because it goes through Twitch. Yeah, okay, good point. I'm working on trying to finish batch painting these aberrants for my Genestealer cult. And earlier we were talking about the latest chapter approved announcements, shaking up how the primary objectives work for missions, point drops for most of the factions and units, that kind of thing. I heard taking straight up donations can be risky like that because chargebacks and leaking personal info. Oh, okay. So I see. That's not a problem you run into with the subscriptions and bits. That must be why people choose to go that route, probably. Hey, I think we're pretty much ready to start doing ink wash on these guys. Oh, actually, I know a few of them have a Genestealer cult icon hanging from a little chain. Let's do those. Renegade, you playing 40k? Are you doing some hobby tonight? We're going to be playing Warhammer live on stream tomorrow. And that's going to be starting around 3 o'clock Pacific time US. I'm going to be playing my Dark Angels against my friend Dominic's Eldar. Second game, he won the first game pretty handily with his Ulthuan, led by Countess Eldrad. There was lots of trolling where they donate, wait almost a month, then charge back the donation. Oh no. Seems like trolling is kind of a problem overall on Twitch, at least in certain communities. I wonder if it's more of a problem in the video game community than Warhammer 40k, as pretty much everyone I've seen in here that's like around the 40k community seem pretty awesome. But I try to be somewhat careful. This community is nice, yeah. Also really nice Warhammer 40k community on Instagram. I was kind of getting into that a bit right when I was starting to prepare to live stream. And I'm still posting a lot on Instagram. But the people over there have been super nice and very welcoming and encouraging. Twitch too. Actually, everybody I've joined, whose stream I've joined on Twitch, has been super awesome and supportive and nice. And it's been surprisingly fun. I knew about Twitch for a long time, but wasn't really an active user, as I kind of mostly associated it with video games. And I've been sort of gradually phasing out video games as like a part of my life. Used to be super into video games. I'm saying most of my life, and to the point of studying animation and becoming a video game developer. And after that, I kind of wanted to develop my own video games, and I have done that, but didn't really find it to be very lucrative for me personally. Didn't really have, I guess, the right partners or the right business plan. And I know streaming isn't exactly a huge moneymaker either, but my hope is with Patreon I could at least get a little bit of side income coming in while I get to still do the Warhammer hobby that I love. But yeah, mostly just trying to work a lot and pay off my debts. Got my own place, but it's been pretty expensive, and right after I got my condo, the costs went up a bunch as they installed new siding, and that pretty much like doubled my HOA fee, unfortunately. But trying to get by. Started a construction job installing gutters on my days off, but I do think about trying to find something that uses my design skills, maybe pays better at some point. But I have become a little bit disillusioned with video games, as feeling like they're kind of a waste of time, and that not only do I not really want to play them anymore, I don't necessarily want to make my money from getting other people to play them either. And I do feel like Warhammer's a little better in that you are at least interacting with other people face to face. You have the hobby time where you're doing something artistic. And seems like a nice way to meet people and make friends to me. With this hobby, you got something to show for it. That's true. And I actually have been thinking about selling some of my models to recoup some of my money I've spent on the hobby. Try and figure out what the armies I really want to play with are, and what the units I really like are, and kind of part with some of the others that I'm not so in love with. And my collection has grown a bit out of control to where it doesn't all fit in my display case I built anymore, so that's maybe a sign. Made a very cool 3-tier display, or 3-shelf display case with LED lights and sliding plexiglass front on it. I'm very happy with. I've also thought about building those for people. I don't know how much I could get for them though. If I could get $1,000 for a display case, that might be worth my time, but it would probably have to be something about like that in terms of the amount of effort that goes into cutting the wood and attaching them together and staining them and getting the LEDs in there and all that. Oh, Renegade, I play Street Fighter as a form of meditation and keep my hand-eye coordination in my old age. Age and experience beats the innocence of youth. Street Fighter's a fun one. I've played a lot of games. I did do Let's Play videos for YouTube for a while of like Minecraft and Medieval 2 Total War and Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator was kind of fun. But probably the video game I played the most is Counter-Strike back in the day. Big fan of Counter-Strike Source is probably my favorite. I know it's not everybody's favorite who plays that game, but that was mine. Doing a Carroburg Crimson wash on this guy, and I figured on the skin, and I figured I might as well use the same wash color on the red parts of the weapon. Seems appropriate. Nice to be finally working on the ink washes on this guy, on these guys now. So I feel like that means we're kind of on the homeward stretch. How are we doing on time? 8:30, we're doing great. I got plenty of time. I've been really looking forward to doing the ink wash on these little cutouts on the back. I knew it was going to look cool, and it does. Ah, you probably missed the CSGO scandals then. Yeah, I tried CSGO actually, and I couldn't get into it. I think my least favorite thing about Counter-Strike Go is not having any control over who you are playing with. Like, it didn't seem like the same as Counter-Strike Source where you would be able to join a certain server and play on the server that you like with the people that you like. Seemed like you get thrown in with a bunch of angry, racist 13-year-olds and you have like no choice in the matter. And that was quite annoying. And just overall seemed like a hotbed of bad manners and bad behavior and sort of like trolling and that kind of stuff. And then like kind of the focus on like loot boxes and stuff like that. I was like, what the heck? Why does this need to be part of my Counter-Strike experience? You know, I kind of like the game to be as pure as possible, basically. And I felt like it was very much diluted with unnecessary garbage in CSGO. And kind of like it was trying to be other games. Trying to be Modern Warfare or something. That happens in lots of games. Yep, the ones where you have no control over who you play with. And I don't play team games. Oh. I actually love team games when they're done well. Like, my favorite thing about Counter-Strike is when you'd be like last man standing and you know your whole team is watching you and kind of rooting for you. And then if you could manage to pull out a surprise win, could really kind of like get your heart racing. Playing like, you know, 1 versus 8 or something and managing to somehow save the round. But one team game I would recommend, which I also did quite enjoy, is MechWarrior Online. It's team versus team, but there was never any trolling that I was aware of. And seemed like really cool kind of group of players in that game. And it's free, and you sort of earn credits while you play, which you can use to buy and customize your mech vehicles that you pilot. And I liked how it really felt like almost like a mech sim where you had to manage a very complex machine with stuff like heat levels and battery power and ammo, very limited ammunition, having to like trade out extra armor in order to carry more ammo, stuff like that. Yeah, the skins value trading stuff is awful. Yeah, not a fan of that. I just feel like it, there's no point for it. It doesn't need to be there. It just seems unnecessary. Game like Counter-Strike, I feel like the focus should be on the kind of the pure competition. And when you're getting into like, hundreds and hundreds of different weapon skins and all this kind of stuff, it's just a distraction from what the game's really about, which is teamwork and coordination and team play, sportsmanship, and kind of like realism. That was always what I liked about Counter-Strike, is that you didn't have a bunch of crazy laser weapons, and you couldn't really get shot multiple times. You'd go down to a single headshot, that kind of thing. I liked how that was sort of realistic. Kind of felt like, to some extent, the game was really preparing you for real-world combat and counter-type situations. I get confused between Battletech and MechWarrior. Never played either. Well, I get confused between them too. Battletech and MechWarrior. Well, there's also Robotech, which is an anime, and it was on our recommended list, I think, the other day when we were talking about movies and anime that were sort of 40K adjacent. The old Robotech, I feel, is really quite fun. I watched it pretty much as an adult, and I was surprised how cool it was. I liked the story. Apparently it was made by combining different anime from Japan. But when I looked into it a little more, it basically seemed like, okay, Season 1 was one anime, and Season 2 was another one, and Season 3 was another one. So that's what they meant by combining them, I'm pretty sure. But it was like pretty hardcore, like characters die, and the kind of alien threat in the anime is like pretty legitimate. Kind of like an alien space fleet showing up at the edge of the solar system. Seemed like great premise for a show. And there's like a alien spacecraft which has crashed on Earth that humans have kind of reverse engineered some of its technology, but not all of it. And they've kind of gotten it working, but not fully. And they hook a bunch of anti-gravity engines on it and levitate it into space and start flying it. And it's like, that's their big hope, to confront this alien fleet. And the alien race that they're up against is kind of interesting. Has some sort of 40K-esque elements to it. Like, they're sort of a race of super soldiers who are all about the military, but they no longer have like the creativity to actually design their own weapons. So it kind of reminds me of Warhammer 40K, where all the technology is like old relic stuff. That's kind of how I think they're called the Ventradi, operate in Robotech. But yeah, I get Battletech and MechWarrior confused too. I almost feel like they're the same thing. But maybe I should look that up and actually figure out the difference tonight. But it's pretty fun driving the big robot mech warriors around. And they are like sort of building sized and have some very cool, very powerful weapons in them. And that game also has the same thing where you end up being like the last guy alive on your team and everyone's trying to, cheering you on and watching you play. and sometimes you can totally save the day at the last moment, or it turns into like a one-on-one, and you've got, you know, both teams watching as two badly damaged mech who are like down to a single weapon each, or strafing around each other trying to finish each other off. It can be quite exciting. Anybody else got favorite games, favorite video games? We had someone in here who was new to Age of Sigmar and painting up his first army, but sounded like he hadn't played yet. I actually got an invitation to a hobby shop for an upcoming Saturday to play Lord of the Rings Fantasy Battles, which is a game I've been interested in. I have a couple painted skirmish forces, but I've never played or learned, and I was pretty tempted by it. I was actually thinking about maybe trying to bring a camera and see if they'd let me stream it, but I don't know if they'd be into that. Might just do it if I have a day off and nobody lined up to play 40k against, but normally Saturday's a 40k day for me. Saturday and Tuesday are the days that I'm going to be streaming 40k on the channel. Then I'm doing painting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday right now after work. But I have thought about playing Lord of the Rings. The other games I've kind of been thinking about from time to time are not Age of Sigmar, really. I mean, I sometimes say, oh, I'm thinking about it, but never very seriously. But I did hear that Old World is going to be a thing where they're kind of bringing back Warhammer Fantasy in a new format. So that sounds interesting. Square-based Warhammer Fantasy, but like set 1,000 years earlier or something like that, in the same world. So I have been thinking about Old World when that comes out. Could be something I get into. And I've been thinking about, not super seriously, but I've been thinking about Blood Bowl. The other day on my overnight shift, I spent some time looking through the different Blood Bowl teams, trying to think about, oh, okay, if I was going to play Blood Bowl, what faction would I go for? And I kind of surprised myself by leaning towards Chaos. I like the Beastmen on a football team kind of vibe. Seemed fun. But Chaos is like one of the factions that I don't play in 40k at all. I play 3 different Xenos factions, and once I get my Imperial Guard going, I'll have 2 different Imperium factions, but somehow I've never gotten into Chaos. I do think about it from time to time. Maybe doing Renegades, maybe doing, Red Corsairs that have like a kind of Terminator-focused army. But the fact that Chaos seem like they haven't gotten updates in a while, and they are kind of like don't have Primaris, so it's like all their troops are kind of small, almost like the wrong scale, is definitely something that kind of stands in the way of me picking up Chaos. And at this point, just the fact that I have so many 40k factions already, I don't feel the pressure to start another one. Well, I think we got that guy done, so we're about halfway through doing the pink ink wash on these guys. This is a Karaberg Crimson ink wash I'm using. And I'm pretty much trying to hit all the pink except for the top of the head, just to create the sense of some kind of light hitting the top of the head there. And doing the red weapon handles. I think looks pretty good. But yeah, I was a big Counter-Strike player for many years. Loved Counter-Strike. I was actually kind of addicted to it. I must have kind of an addictive personality. As I remember in college, I would have a hard time just like going to sleep and not playing Counter-Strike until 2 or 3 in the morning when I was just totally exhausted. It was one of those games where you could always be like, okay, one more round. And then at the end of that round, okay, one more round. And on and on and on. So I guess for the future of the channel, looking at getting a Patreon going. I'm definitely thinking about trying to get the channel live streaming on YouTube. That was something I was kind of interested in from the beginning. But it seemed like I might not be able to right away. I seem to remember reading that YouTube had some restrictions before you could live stream. You needed like some number of subscribers and some number of watch hours. And we have been building up videos on the YouTube channel, just putting my live streams up there. But I didn't know if I would actually qualify to be able to live stream on YouTube. And that's something I want to look into, is to figure out, was that old information I was seeing? Are you still limited in that way? And I know there was also some like apps you could get where you could live stream right away to YouTube, like I think it was called Prism Video or something like that. But seems like there might be a bigger audience on YouTube for Warhammer 40k content. I don't know about for painting necessarily as much as for like live stream games. And I also know that Facebook gaming is a thing. A lot of people are having success live streaming on Facebook. Gaming stuff, like video games at least. So that was also something that I thought maybe I should look into a little more. But it seems like YouTube would be the best place to live stream. And I liked how YouTube has sort of built-in features for like subscribers only content and stuff like that. The subscribers only content I've thought about doing for this YouTube channel, or for this channel, for Challenger Tabletop, would be like maybe 2,000 point games would be for subscribers and 1,000 point games would be for everybody. I've also thought about having subscriber games include third-party models, scratch-built models, 3D printed models, and keep the free content Games Workshop only, so that at least the most sort of general public content that I'm putting online would be kind of Games Workshop friendly, where I wouldn't feel like they'd probably be coming after me to get me to take my videos down for, you know, intellectual property stuff regarding 3D printed models, if that content was like subscribers only. I feel like I'd kind of fly under their radar a little more in that regard. But then again, if I'm mentioning it every time of, oh, hey, check out our members only stuff for 3D printed models, then might defeat the purpose. Did you see all those GW NDA leaks from YouTubers? No, but I'm very interested. Can you tell me more, Renegade? I was kind of making the guess that probably the Games Workshop or the YouTubers who are sort of working hand in hand with Games Workshop are probably making some kind of backroom deals, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they were related to 3D printed models. Is Games Workshop making people promise not to put 3D printed models on their channel? Because that would not surprise me at all. I kind of figured they were doing that kind of thing, actually. But no, I haven't heard about it, and this makes me very curious. Something I should look up tonight while I'm have some time at work. The NDA contracts got leaked. That's what it sounds like. Interesting. It's kind of weird, isn't it, that these companies can have these secret contracts where people aren't even allowed to discuss the terms of the contract that they agreed to. And I'm not really a fan of Games Workshop legal policy in general. They seem awfully heavy-handed going after, you know, free games made by fans and free animations made by fans. I guess that it's kind of understood that that's something that all these companies could do, but they didn't really have incentive to do. But Games Workshop seems to be all about it, legally attacking their own biggest fans, basically. And I think that's not very cool, even if it is their legal right. I have some friends who feel like intellectual property as a whole is like ridiculous, which I can't fully get behind as an artist and creator myself. But successful YouTubers get free Games Workshop models for reviews and stuff, free boxes, get them earlier before official release. Well, that doesn't surprise me. I don't even think that's weird. It's kind of like standard of if you want somebody to review something, it doesn't hurt to give them a free copy of it to review, but at the same time, I can see how it would be interpreted as bribery. Like, how are you going to give a fair, balanced review of something when you're essentially getting bribed with free products? So I could see how people would find that to be an issue. I'm very curious, though, if it had anything to say about, not having any 3D printed stuff on the channel. Because I would kind of expect them to be going after that kind of stuff. Games Workshop doesn't really seem to know how they're going to deal with the 3D printed revolution that's happening right in their face. And a military secrets level NDA. Interesting. Like, we'll sue you into the ground if you talk about any of this stuff kind of thing, sounds like. Well, that's Games Workshop for you. Wow. They don't have to. It's banned in stores and tournaments. Yeah, 3D printed stuff is. It's true, but it's, not necessarily banned at every store that sells Games Workshop product, just Games Workshop stores. I was talking to someone in chat a while ago who said that someone at his local game store, or a couple guys, had basically created fully 3D printed armies for Warhammer that they were using in a league, Warhammer League at the shop, and they were offering to 3D print whole armies for other people in the league. And next thing they knew, the shop that they played at pulled half of its Games Workshop products, or half its Warhammer. It was like, yeah, we're not going to stock this stuff so heavily if people are just going to 3D print and not even buy it. And you can't really blame the shop for, responding. But it does seem like it could hurt their business, especially as more and more people get into it. There's more 3D printers being sold every day, I guess. But I was thinking that could be an interesting discussion topic for a Paint and Chat episode. Basically, the future of 3D printing and wargaming. We're getting to the point now where a lot of times you can find cooler looking 3D printed models made by a third party than the actual official Games Workshop models. Certainly with older stuff like Catachans, that where the models really haven't been updated in ages. Renegade, yeah, they got to make money, and if someone is touting their 3D printing alternative, why do they even need to shop then? Yeah. And that is something I kind of want to get into also personally, is designing 3D printed games. And make maybe some board games that are 3D printed, where you can 3D print miniatures and the board and the dice and everything you need. Then maybe just print off the rule book or, read it online. So kind of like a fully 3D printable board game. I have designed some board game prototypes myself, so I have some concepts that would be ready to go for that kind of thing. And I think could be a market for it. I have designed some 3D printable miniatures, mostly for HeroQuest, the old version, taking HeroQuest models that people had 3D scanned and then swapping out like the weapons and equipment on them and stuff like that. Taking some other people's models and like reposing them and putting them up on Thingiverse, the free 3D print to, STL sharing site. And that was quite fun. My friend printed some of the models I designed for me, which was cool. Hey, Blendon. Are you streaming your game tomorrow? Yes, I am. Our 1,000 point game is going to be streaming around 3 p.m. U.S. Pacific time. 1,000 points, Dark Angels versus Eldar. Really looking forward to it. I've been having a blast streaming 40K. Be awesome if you dropped in and checked out the game. We'll probably be playing from about 3 p.m. Pacific till 6 or 6:30. Seems like the games have been taking about 3 hours, so maybe we'll be finished by 6. And I'll be playing against Dominic and his Ulthuan, and he won the first game, so I think I'm the underdog coming into this one. Although last time I said that, I had a super dominant victory against someone else, so maybe I'll win big after sort of analyzing his playstyle and reworking my list a bit. We'll see. But basically the first game was him destroying the medical shipment that was tainted with Gene Stealer virus to save the planet of Icarus 2. And now this game is going to be my Dark Angels trying to hunt down his Eldar as they retreat back to their Webway portal and trying to find and destroy his Webway portal, while he tries to lead me off course and keep me from locating it. So it should be fun. Dominic was a super nice guy. Very fun to play against. Really looking forward to hanging out with him again tomorrow. And unfortunately my cousin couldn't make it for the game. The first in our first 40K live stream, my cousin was reading the viewer chat for us. Which there wasn't a lot of, but still that was nice. And he was kind of spectating the game, but he can't make it tomorrow. He's got to work, so we'll just have the 2 players. We'll try to probably we'll do a little intro where we'll be reading chat as we introduce ourselves and the armies. And then we'll probably play about half the game, and then we might sit down for a little quick halftime interview and respond to some chat. Or we'll try to respond to it as we see it while we're playing. But we'll be focused on the game, so we may not notice chat messages right away. But yeah, definitely check it out if you get the chance. We'll do a little timer countdown about 10 minutes before we go live, so if you get a notification, you've got a few minutes to jump in before we're going to start. All right, well that is all of the pink skin ink washed. I'm planning to do ink wash also on the white kind of armor plates. I'm going to do just a little bit of Seraphim Sepia ink wash, probably watered down, to just kind of dirty up the white a little bit and bring out a few of the details. But the main ink wash that's coming up is going to be the clothing, and that's going to take a little while. So let me sit down and have a sip of coffee here. Coffee's kind of cold, but still tastes good. Nice, sounds fun. Thank you, Blendon. Renegade, did you see Dave from Mini Wargaming? I don't know. I did see that he's got his own miniature line and game coming out, if that's what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it. He's been promoting his own range of 3D printed minis in game. Yeah, I did see it. I've been seeing a lot of people I follow on Instagram painting his miniatures, and Dave's been testing out a bunch of colors on them. Man, I love. Oh yeah, Veil Touch, right? I love Dave from Mini Wargaming. What a fun guy. Seems like he'd be a great person to play against. I'm pretty sure he's on my top 10 people I would most like to play 40k against. Did that in one of my first live streams. But yeah, I think him and Matt both made the cut. Or maybe Matt was honorable mention. My channel is somewhat inspired by the Beat Matt bat reps, if you ever caught those. Matt, his partner at Mini Wargaming, did a Warhammer 40k Battle Report series for a while that was basically themed around can you beat Matt at Warhammer 40k. And that's kind of the style of my Challenger tabletop streams for now, until I get another host, which could happen in the future. But I wouldn't say I'm as hard to beat as Matt is. I'm just kind of an average 40k player in terms of skill level. Alright, well, diving in on the Agrax Earthshade ink wash. And my plan is to hit all the clothing with this ink wash, including these little armor plates. So it's going to be quite a bit of every model to hit. And this has the potential to take a while, so I'm going to try and go quick. And I do tend to go a bit heavy with my ink wash. Main thing I'm trying to avoid is having it drip all over the model, so mostly just using the brush to try to spread it out to the point where it's no longer dripping off. And we're starting with the Abominant here, and he has probably the most clothing, as he's wearing some overalls. And the nice thing is I was able to pretty much start from just primed and going straight to ink wash, because I like to do this brown ink wash over gray for the clothing on my Genestealer cults. And I pretty much had a gray color to start with from doing a black primer and then a zenithal spray of white primer from above. But yeah, I would like to do something like that, like Mini Wargamer Dave is doing. But I don't think I would do something as close to Warhammer 40k. I feel like he's actually in danger of getting some kind of harassment lawsuits from Games Workshop. I know that other companies have made stuff that's also close enough to Games Workshop that they could function as proxies. And I feel like he's also kind of riding that line of how close can I make these look to Warhammer 40k Chaos Faction without literally copying Games Workshop's IP. And when you're kind of riding that line of how close can you get, I feel like you're running the risk of having Games Workshop come after you on some level. I wonder if we'd even find out if he does get a harassment suit. Maybe they're worried about the bad press, but they don't usually seem to be. Decided to go ahead and use this same ink wash color on the metal shackles. Normally I would do Nuln Oil on metal, but I feel like this looks just as good. As long as you want the metal to look kind of dirty and a little brown, it's alright. Either GW would nip it in the bud early or take it down if it gets big. Oh, you're right. Either one of those I could see. Yeah, exactly. We'll wait for him to make $1 million and then we'll sue him for $1 million kind of thing. But it does seem like some companies have been kind of getting away with it. Like Cromlech, you know, I kind of wondered, did they get away with it because they're in Eastern Europe and Games Workshop doesn't have friendly courts to sue them in. Because I feel like if Cromlech was located in England, then Games Workshop would have an easier time picking them apart. After all, the head of Games Workshop, or the founder or something, was just received like a knighthood from the government. He must be bringing in a lot of money to England, don't you think? Well, hey, I think we're just about done with this first model on the brown ink wash. Once we get to the point of doing the ink wash on the white, this will go super quick, as that can just be very quick and dirty. Now doing the clothing on his little familiar here. And they can afford the bigger legal team. Games Workshop sure can. Seems like they already have the huge legal team permanently on retainer, working around the clock to go after people. Just a matter of figuring out what their marching orders are, or maybe it's more a matter of how much could they make from the lawsuit. I must admit, I even had a moment where I wondered if the Cromlech founder could have been assassinated by some like MI6 type special agent or something for on orders from the newly knighted founder of Games Workshop. I mean, the founder of Cromlech died of COVID, so there's no reason to suspect foul play, but it was at least just a tad suspicious that you had the founder of Games Workshop receive a knighthood, and then like a week later the founder of Cromlech dies. Okay, I'm not going to say anything else about that, but I just thought it was funny, I guess. In a suspicious kind of way. Alright, well there we go. Got some robes painted on the Genestealer Cultist. I think those look pretty good. Literally everything. Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't even know the guy got a knighthood. Is that real? Yeah. Founder of Games Workshop got a knighthood from the Queen, I guess. I feel like Donald Trump made a kind of oblique reference to Warhammer when he was talking about England and how great England was or something. He made some sort of vague comment about they have a great product. They have a really wonderful product. And I was like, well, that's awfully vague. What are you talking about? Could he be talking about Warhammer? Because, I mean, England's a small country, and Warhammer is a pretty big global phenomenon. And I don't know exactly how much money it brings in, but it's got to be a lot. Ah, it's for services to online gaming. Oh, interesting. Oh, you're in the UK and there's been nothing in the news. Oh, very interesting. Well, I wonder what else he's been involved in besides Warhammer. It sounds like he's also has some other kind of involvement in online gaming. But I was just kind of wondering, like, how big a part of the English gross domestic product comes from Warhammer. It's probably a part of it. You know, I don't want to say a significant part because it's a big country that does a lot of other things, but or maybe I called it a small country a minute ago. Geographically kind of small, but major world player. But yeah, they've got football, cricket, rugby, and Warhammer. What else do they have? Pop music, the BBC, national health. Is that about it? Tennis? Oh, okay. He was an author, I think. I read his Choose Your Own Adventure books long ago. Interesting. You know, I wrote a Choose Your Own Adventure for fun when I taught creative writing. I taught creative writing for many years at a summer camp here in Oregon for kids. It's kind of a day camp where the kids would go from like 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, and then they would go home. Their parents would come pick them up from camp. And it was an arts camp. I actually attended it as a kid, pretty much my whole adolescence. And it's fun because the kids get to choose whatever kind of art area they want to go to. And if they get bored, they can just get up and leave and go try a different activity at any time. So basically the kids get to experiment and find what activity interests them. Everything from like ceramics, pottery, to like drawing, painting, stained glass, basket weaving, drama, all kinds of stuff, musical instruments. And then, hopefully the kid finds something they really enjoy, and then they could just hang out every day in that area and do that activity that they really like. And a lot of kids, developed a lifelong passion for art that way. I always thought Europe has no creativity in their education, while our media industry is overblown. English education makes me think of that song by, is it The Who? We Don't Need No Education. I always have, stuffy teachers shouting at the students, trying to suppress any amount of individuality or creativity. That's kind of the stereotype, but I have a niece who lives in England, and she's developed a real passion for music and music composition. Wants to write music for what do you call that? Soundtracks for movies and stuff. That's pretty cool. And seems like she's had good educational support, but she does have kind of wealthy parents, grew up in London, so maybe she went to some good schools. She's just getting ready to go to college or university, whatever it is over there. Some of these guys, it's kind of hard to access the parts I'm trying to ink wash. Just gonna trust in the brush and figure if I can't see it, neither will the people who are admiring the model while I play the game. Kind of one of my philosophies of painting. If I can't see it, other people probably can't either. Or if my brush can't reach it, people probably can't see it. That's what I usually say. I don't know if I asked you, Renegade, are you doing some hobby stuff tonight? My friend Mark, who was in here earlier, is driving from California up to Oregon. California is the state just south of us here in Oregon. So he's probably got like a 300-mile drive ahead of him. So hope you're still driving safe, Mark. I've made that drive a few times on motorcycle. I rode motorcycle for many years. Not tonight, huh, Renegade? Okay, well, thanks for hanging out in chat here. Really enjoying your company. I've been to England a few times, and I actually did a bicycle trip across England, starting in Land's End, southwest Cornwall. And my original plan was to go all the way up to John O'Groats in Scotland. I had a couple weeks after working in London all summer, and I had bought a bicycle, and I didn't really train for it. I was 19 years old, and I had been riding my bicycle to class at university for about a year, but that was pretty much the only training I had. And so I took the train down to Land's End and started my trip. And I think I got to about Bristol, and I was thinking, man, I'm never gonna make it. And somewhere around there, I decided to cut my trip a bit shorter. And instead of going all the way up to John O'Groats, Scotland, I decided I'm just going to go to Edinburgh, Scotland, where I have some friends. And I made it there just about in time to celebrate, I think, my 20th birthday. And that would have been back in 2003, while I think the United States and Britain were invading Iraq, if I remember right. So kind of a memorable summer. And it was really fun. England is a great place to bicycle, it turns out. Scotland, not so much, because the landscape gets really huge, so the hills and mountains you're trying to bicycle up get pretty difficult and intimidating. And the wind also is kind of an issue. Trying to bicycle into a headwind in Scotland can really burn up your energy. But one of the great things about the trip is that there were so many youth hostels to stay at. I pretty much just planned my trip to bounce from one youth hostel to the next, just making sure that they were about 50 to 70 miles apart. And I did learn that a 70-mile day on the bicycle is pretty difficult. Usually if I had a 70-mile day planned, which was most days, I wouldn't get where I was going until after dark, sometimes not until like almost, 10 o'clock or something. And the youth hostels like to close their doors to new arrivals at some point in the evening. So that led to some, awkward nights of trying to get someplace right as they were closing. But for the most part, it was really fun, and I found that the people in England out in the countryside were incredibly nice. Big cities like Bristol were not as fun, and the youth hostels weren't as nice. But out in the country, the youth hostels were really like quaint and cute and fun and well maintained, and the staff was kind, and the other travelers were nice, and the traffic on the little A roads was all very considerate of bicyclists. Like, I think people are kind of used to cyclists out in the country in England. Must be very common activity. But anytime I have my friend Dominic, who I'm gonna play tomorrow, is planning to deploy to England in the military, I told him you should plan on taking a bicycle trip while you're there. It'd be really fun. Seems like France would also be a fun place to bicycle. Of course, they have the Tour de France, so they have kind of a cycling culture there to some extent. But you do in England too. That bicycle trip from Land's End to John O'Groats is very popular, I discovered. Although it doesn't seem like there's just one route that everybody takes. If there is, I wasn't aware of what that route was. Bristol is not the San Francisco of the UK now. Huh. San Francisco has kind of gone downhill since I was there, I guess. People complain that the homeless problem is really out of control there. But I don't know if that's just kind of media hype or if it's really the case. I have some friends who live down there, but I haven't really asked them about that specifically. Here in Portland, Oregon, we have like a reputation that the whole city's gone to pot, and it's like full of homeless and just garbage everywhere, and protests and stuff, and like lawlessness. But I feel like those kind of rumors are a bit blown out of proportion. Hippie liberal students tearing down statues, protesting the police, copying everything in the USA. Oh, okay. So is that what's going on in Bristol now? That's kind of the reputation that we have here in Portland now. But then again, I don't really live downtown, and I have noticed more homeless people setting up tents and stuff along the sides of the freeway, which is not something we ever used to see. Freeway would be like your motorway in England. And I think it's mostly just a matter of like people losing their jobs and homes during the pandemic. You get a certain amount of unemployment where they'll give you money while you're unemployed, but then eventually you hear that runs out and you're just kind of on your own at that point. And a lot of people lost their job right away when the pandemic hit because restaurants shut down, and restaurants were a major source of employment here in Oregon. We were kind of known for our restaurants here in Portland, and to a great extent, the people who were serving in the restaurants or hosting or doing all those kind of jobs were just kind of cut loose because the restaurants had to close. They couldn't afford to pay people, and oftentimes they worked on very small margins of only making 10% profit on every meal anyway, so they just couldn't operate with their doors closed, couldn't pay people. So people who lost their job immediately when the pandemic, shut everything down in 2020, some of them never managed to get work anywhere else. Although I would say that the job market has come back. If you want to work, there's businesses that are struggling to find people now, but it takes a certain amount of motivation to go get those jobs and to be willing to work whatever the job is. Yeah, Bristol is the new Portland. It's all wealthy middle-class students there. I got a job doing construction, installing gutters, and it was the kind of thing where this was just a couple months ago, but I called the business, or I think I submitted a email application. I got hired within about 4 hours. And they've tried out a couple other people have come to help out on the job site, but none of them got hired. So I've turned out to be their only employee who actually stuck around, or else that they actually wanted. And so it's pretty much just me and one other guy doing all the installations. And it feels nice to be valued and needed, but I am thinking about trying to find something that's more lucrative, because the pay's all right, but there's no benefits, and the pay's not amazing. It's possible I could find better pay using my design degree and skills. I had someone I knew from that summer camp post that Leica, local movie studio, was looking for people to build miniature forests for their set design. But I wasn't that encouraged to take that job from what she described earlier, of basically being laid off every time they finish a movie until they start another one. You'd be left without work for months or a year at a time. And that didn't sound like a great gig, and I just wasn't sure about how good that pay would actually be, but I was tempted by that. It sounded like a fun job anyway. So you think the media exaggerates the situation over there regarding the crime and stuff? I saw lots of shocking vids. Seems like a no consequences crime spree paradise. Well, I do think that element of it gets played up by the media. And also by we have a very partisan kind of politics right now in America. And if you are on the Republican side, I would say that the sort of tradition is to blame Democrats for everything you don't like, and to very much exaggerate everything that you don't like. And so we've had a kind of a liberal mayor in Portland, so I think that people who kind of disagree with him politically delight in tearing him down at every opportunity. That looted train recently. Actually, I haven't heard about a looted train. Interesting. But yeah, I would say that that's not totally out of nowhere. I do think there's some truth to that. One thing that's kind of hurt us here in America, I think, is the sort of lack of support for the police. People have looked at situations where the police have been excessively violent or not faced any consequences for bad decisions, and the sort of call for police accountability has been interpreted as like or has sort of turned into a total anti-police movement in some circles, and has certainly been portrayed that way in others. And personally, I'm someone who feels like police are really putting their life on the line for the sake of the community 99% of the time, and as such, they really deserve support. But at the same time, I think that the police should be accountable for their own actions. It's not like they should be above the law. And so trying to find that balance, and the police kind of interpret any call for accountability as being anti-police. So it's like it's hard to have a nuanced debate on that, as both sides are kind of like prone to exaggerate the other side's position. And destroyed all the PPE masks and face shields, leaving them out in the rain? Oh no. Oh, looters got a whole mail train. No, I haven't heard about this. But, you know, like, I don't know. Part of it is like the push to disarm the population, which I think is partly by the police, not wanting to have to face a bunch of armed citizens when they're trying to do their job of enforcing the law. But then they've kind of hamstrung the people in terms of being able to defend themselves against looters and stuff. Seems like looting should be, you know, I hate to say punishable by death, but, you know, if you're having to deal with looters, police are often not going to get there in time to do anything about it. And like you say, you know, the people are often not facing any consequences. And so I think when situations get like that, they tend to get worse and worse until there's some real consequences that people are seriously afraid of, to where they won't do that kind of stuff, like violence. And obviously I think what a lot of people miss is if there weren't police, then all of a sudden every citizen has to be a policeman. You know, if you don't have anyone you can call for help, you have to literally defend yourself with violence against people who are attacking you or trying to rob you or whatever. And I feel like the sort of abolish the police type argument sort of misses that fact. You can't ever abolish the police. It's just that if you don't have police, now you're the police. And that's not fun. The shocking crime of the day here in the news. Yeah, the news loves shocking crimes. It's kind of their bread and butter. I had a armed guy with a mask come to my mom's property when I was living out there, pounding on my door around midnight. I was staying in like a little studio building out there. And he was accusing me of breaking into his place or robbing his house. And eventually I just locked him out and called the sheriff, who showed up, 10 or 15 minutes later with body armor and assault rifles, about 3 of them, but by that point they were long gone. Someone brought a dead body into a post office and tried to claim their pension. When the post office worker said, "What the hell?" they threw the body on the floor and ran away in the news today. Oh my God. Yeah, that's funny. Wow. Ridiculous. Well, hey, we made it through painting all these guys' clothing. I think we're at the point where just about all that's left is the white chitinous armor. I did see a guy here where I missed one of his little silver bracelets. Let's paint that real quick. That's like Weekend at Bernie's, you're right. I had kind of a funny idea for a Weekend at Bernie's style script. I actually saw Weekend at Bernie's for the first time not long ago. And I didn't find it that funny, honestly. Which was kind of, I don't know. For the most part, I've been going through a period of really loving and enjoying movies from the 80s. I'm not a big fan of a lot of modern movies, and you know, I'm fairly liberal in terms of my politics, but I feel like the sort of message pushing in a lot of modern movies is just overkill to where it kind of ruins the fun of the movie because you so feel like they're trying to push their kind of worldview and not necessarily in a very believable way even. But there have been a few good movies coming out lately, but I've had a lot of fun going back and watching some older stuff. Like what was one? Oh, the political messages ruin movies. Yeah, sometimes they do. I remember when I was a kid, my dad hated the Disney cartoons we were going to see. Like, my dad had worked as a technical writer in the Middle East. And he complained when we watched Aladdin of like all the caricatures of Middle Easterners and stuff like this. And I was like, okay, Dad, can't you just enjoy the movie? But now as an adult, I can kind of understand where he was coming from, where, especially he didn't like how the, he's a big fan of the source material that a lot of these Disney movies were based on. So he was always noticing how they were being changed and modified, and it's kind of the messages that were being inserted into them, which I was not savvy enough to pick up on as a kid. But now I can kind of understand him a bit more. Do I want the real dirt on Prince Harry? I don't know. I kind of like Prince Harry. He's a brave guy. He went and fought in the military when he didn't really have to. But sure, yeah. I guess he lives in America now, doesn't he? I wonder if he's an American citizen now. I kind of doubt it. You got me on the edge of my seat here. I can't wait to hear the dirt on Prince Harry. Oh, I guess I've also still have to paint the weapons on these guys, or ink wash the weapons. His real father is James Hewitt, Diana's ex who had red hair. Oh, well, that makes sense. I mean, I think here in America, we thought Prince Harry might be illegitimate for many years. Guess that kind of explains his, giving up his title and moving to America and all that stuff. He's where the phrase redheaded stepchild came from. I don't know if that's true. There's no other ginger hair in the family. He's a bastard prince. Well, I hate to break it to you, but your whole royal family over there is illegitimate. If you go back about 15 generations, the queen had a child with an archer while the king was on military campaign. If I remember right from a documentary I watched recently. So, I don't know if it's such a big deal after all. Have you heard that one? He's a bastard prince. His mom was a cheater. They were related to Queen Victoria. Yeah, huh. Well, I guess that makes sense. It's a shame, really. You'd think she'd be happy with a prince for a husband. That's pretty much what women used to dream of, marrying a prince. Sometimes I get the feeling these days women don't want to be married at all. Don't want to have kids. A lot of the ones I see on dating apps anyway say they don't want kids. Hey, welcome, Tamir. Good to see you. How are the Moon's Gene Stealers coming together? Well, the aberrants here are almost done. I'm working on a ink wash now of the white armor plates. And I'm just using kind of a watered down Seraphim Sepia, trying not to go too heavy-handed with it because it's got a very yellow tint to it, like you can see there. So watering it down to kind of spread it out, and we're almost done. I still got to do some ink wash on the weapons. And then I think we're pretty much good. The weapons are going to get a black ink wash. So it's the homeward stretch. I'm going to be up all night watching the hotel, but might have a little time before that if I finish these soon enough. How are you doing, Tamir? What are you up to? And I guess I'll mention we do have a... Okay, so anything interesting for you in the chapter approved? Well, I'd say the thing that was most interesting to me was the changing up of the missions, where there's going to be basically 2 primary objectives on every mission. And the second one is going to be kind of like the old mission secondary, but you'll be forced to take it. So your primary mission, your first part of the primary will still be take and hold. Either hold 1, hold 2, or hold 2, or I think they're all going to be hold 2, hold 3, if I remember right. And then you'll have some kind of mission-specific primary that you'll have to try and do. And it seems like there's still some hit-and-miss ones there, which are going to be too hard or too easy, but at least both players will be forced to take them. And so that's interesting. And there was also some good points for me somewhere. Battle Wagon dropping by 15 points. That's good for me. I have 3 scratch-built Battle Wagons. And Leman Russ dropping by 10 points. That's good for me. I have 4 Leman Russ tanks in my collection. And I did have a couple that I was using for Genestealer Cult and a couple that I was using for Imperial Guard, but I'm considering maybe making them all guard tanks. We'll have to see. I guess once I get my Genestealer Cult Codex, I'll take another look at how many points worth of Brood Brothers I can effectively bring. Because Brood Brothers are going to be limited to 25% of your army in the new Genestealer Cult Codex. So if I'm playing a 1,000 point game, I'm not sure I'll be able to take any Leman Russ at all. Or maybe I'll be able to afford 1, but I would need also some, probably like a patrol with some troops or something. So they made the battlefield smaller, and now they want to flood the place with tanks. Are you talking about the minimum battlefield size going down like a year or 2 ago? Or is there something new with Battlefield getting even smaller? Because I'm kind of enjoying the 1,000 point games on a 44 by 30. It is a small board, but I feel like it kind of lends itself to a 3-hour game. That's about how long it's been taking to play our 1,000 point incursion games. Yeah, they did that. They made the official game board smaller. Again? Like just recently? I'd be shocked if a 1,000 point game got smaller than 44 by 30. That's already pretty tiny. The Brood Brothers exclusion is really sad, as they only got the one new, admittedly cool elite character. Oh, right. Like, we got the Reductus Saboteur, and then besides that, they just took stuff away. That's kind of the case. I was really pretty bummed about Genestealer Cult Brood Brothers changes until I decided to just turn my Brood Brothers into an Astra Militarum army, and that gave me something to kind of be excited about. But it didn't really change my disappointment with the change to Brood Brothers. It just kind of distracted me with, thinking about something else instead. Changed the wallpaper on my cell phone to be like an Astra Militarum picture to help get myself pumped for Astra Militarum. And I am excited for it. Should be pretty quick to change my Brood Brothers over to Astra Militarum, as I mostly am just going to have to repaint the faces. I have my brood brothers with these sort of purple faces, and if I paint them with more human colors, I'll pretty much be good to go with Astra Militarum. But of course, that didn't stop me from ordering some new stuff too. Don't tell anyone I ordered some recast Kasrkins. I tried to find good deals on eBay, but I gave up after like 2 months and realized I'm never going to be able to afford the old school metal Kasrkins. But maybe we'll get some plastic versions of those, as I heard some rumors about heavy infantry for Imperial Guard coming out. I don't know if that's going to be like Kasrkins, but that was kind of my hope. I know I'm not into recasts either. I feel like it kind of I feel like that's as really close as you can get to piracy, and I try not to get that kind of bad karma. But yeah, I wanted those so bad, and I just couldn't afford them. So I did break down and do that. Hope you guys will keep that between us. Not like I'm going to post this video on YouTube or anything. There's a rumor of a new guard tank coming. Oh, interesting. I haven't heard that. Yeah, you missed the Kasrkin Renegade? Yeah, me too. Just rumors, no pics. What have you heard about it? Any idea of what kind of tank we're going to see? That does sound like some interesting rumor. Oh, I guess it would make sense that there's going to be something big and cool and new to come along with the new Codex for Guard, which I'm expecting in 2022. Is that what you guys are thinking? Oh, Lord of War Heavy. Oh, the Baneblade's younger brother. Oh, interesting. I kind of thought that's what, like a... What is that tank? Like a Malkador or something? Or... Bane Baby. Baby Blade. Well, making some pretty good progress on this sepia ink wash. Trying not to go too heavy with it. It's looking pretty good on the models that are dried. And I think the last thing will be a black ink wash on the weapons, and then I think we're done. So I'd say we're definitely going to finish these guys today. And can't wait to field them with the new Codex. And they're going to be good with my Hive Cult. I run Twisted Helix, and they specialize in sort of big fighty troops. +1 strength and all that. Plus we have kind of an enhanced version of the Biophagus. Like, I think we have some stratagems for the Biophagus that are Twisted Helix only or something like that. It was from a guy that leaks a lot of rumors on his stream on YouTube, and have been right about a lot of the rumors he put out. Been a long time since the Guard had a new tank. The Taurox is a bit funny, I agree. I'd want a Rhino chassis variant for the Guard. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that could be fun. It's kind of funny. There used to be like more variants of the Rhino back in the old days. You guys notice that? Although I guess I feel like the Rhino is kind of on the way out, huh? Now that Primaris Space Marine can't use them. Just hope they don't get washed off the board in one turn or something. Is that a Tau reference? I guess that's why you need to swamp the board in them. That's why we need cheaper vehicles. Because they're going to die in one turn, huh? They're like, oh, everybody's going to shift away from vehicles because of the new Tau meta. We better drop the points on them. Tactical squads with special heavy weapons, Rhino chassis variants. Sororitas are the new Marines. Oh, yeah. You're right. Sororitas are still using Rhino chassis vehicles, and they're probably going to continue to do so. Well, that's kind of normal, isn't it? Female characters replacing male characters in every IP. Okay. There we go. All right, that's all of them ink wash there. No to the aberrants. Oh, okay. Hope the aberrants don't get washed off the board in one turn or something. They got a new Rhino tank that outguns the old Predator. Oh yeah, they did, didn't they? I like the look of that new Sororitas tank, though. The Castigator, right. The Biophages won't do much good without aberrants. Well, I think it is possible for the Biophages to give the aberrants like a feel no pain or something, so maybe that'll help them stick around, but I could be wrong. I don't have a very good command of the new rules yet. Still waiting on my codex. I realize I forgot to wash any of these guys' little forehead armor things. Just going to dab those with a little bit of this sepia wash to kind of bring out some of the details there. Should be pretty quick. I love seeing how ink wash brings out the details on a model. Feels like magic, kind of. There we go. Time for our Nuln Oil wash, and we are on the homeward stretch. Last ink wash of the batch. Yeah, but once they're dead, he can't really do much. But it's nice that they have Feel No Pain tankiness. I hope they've still got Feel No Pain. They might have lost it. I can't remember. But at least what they do have going for them is, I think it sounds like they're going to be able to deep strike 8 inches away. And at least then you're likely to get your charge off. So there's that. Alright, here we go. Ink washing their metal weapon bits with Nuln Oil. The classic. Well, that's interesting. You said you think it's known who Prince Harry's dad was. I had never. I don't think I ever heard specifically that it was supposed to be a certain person. But I suppose that's something that people would be able to kind of piece together from the public record. But I do think he gets kind of like a hard rap for that. I mean, it's not like he had anything to do with his own parentage. And I feel like he's tried to be a straight up guy since he's been an adult. Went and had some military adventures. I respect him for serving in Iraq, especially when there's pretty much like a bounty on his head as an individual. Well, let me look up, see if they still got Bestial Vigor. Do you have a codex? Do you have a Genestealer called Codex, or are you just looking on somewhere? I'd be surprised if they already got their new rules in Battlescribe or Wahapedia. Seems like that usually takes a little while for them to get those updated. All right, the huge hammer. You can get a relic hammer for this one. I think it has like damage 3 or damage 4 or something crazy. Getting it done. Renegade, I use Wahapedia as reference. Yeah, I don't think the new Genestealer Cult Codex is on Wahapedia yet, but I could be wrong. They could have added the Reductus Saboteur using the Shadow Throne box. I'm trying to think of how you would know for sure that you're looking at the up-to-date version. What is something that definitely changed? Well, look at Genestealers. If Genestealers have a 4-up invulnerable, then you'll know that Wahapedia has been updated. And if they have a 5-up invulnerable, it probably means they haven't. Oh, Bestial Vigor lost its Feel No Pain. Yeah, that's what I thought. So maybe that's unfortunate. But maybe the Biophages can still give them a Feel No Pain? I'm not sure. It'd be nice. But it may be that they just don't have a Feel No Pain anymore. But at least with Aberrants, there's always the hope that you can just get them stuck into melee the turn that they arrive from Deep Strike. Oh, it still has -1 damage. Oh, okay. And Wahapedia is not updated. All right. Yeah, -1 damage. That's big. I don't think they had that before. I always hate to face anything that has -1 damage. And I have it on my Orc vehicles with Ramshackle, but it's like the worst version of -1 damage, where it's only triggered by strength 7 or lower weapons, so it basically almost never comes up. It's like you have to remember for like 3 games to get to the one opportunity you have to use Ramshackle, because, you know, Las Cannon, it's not triggered, Melta, it's not triggered. So all these weapons where you would really want it, they don't trigger it because they're too strong. And so it really feels pretty useless sometimes. But if these guys have straight up -1 damage and I don't know what, three wounds each, I hope, at least, that could be decent. Be hard to chew through 3 wound models with -1 damage. Relatively hard anyway. Let's stick some ink wash on that armor panel. Though -1 damage isn't really great on Aberrants with their 5+ save. Well, better than not having it. If they're gonna fail all their saves, then at least to be able to reduce damage is nice. But you're right, it seems like with a 5-up save, you could just chew through them with damage 1 weapons, no problem. It's kind of funny, Orcs with having their toughness 5. It's like, when it matters, it's awesome, but some armies just counter it so easily. Like my friend Sean Mortimer on here, he plays Imperial Fists with an army that has like pretty much no weapons that are under strength 5. So my Orcs being toughness 5 really doesn't bother him. But they got 5 toughness now, so it helps versus heavy bolters. Yeah, so heavy bolters still going to be wounding them half the time. They're going to fail all their saves, and then at least it'll be damage 1. You're right. That would be good. But against strength 4 weapons, they'll be pretty tough. Of course, you aren't going to face many strength 4 weapons that are 2 damage. Hey, we're on the last two guys. We're just about done. Also, the Primaris got some 5-strength weapons, relic bolters. My friend Mortimer, he runs heavy intercessors as his like standard like line troops, and they're all equipped with Hellstorm bolters, which are assault 3, 30-inch, strength 5, no AP. So they just chew through orcs, because of course versus orcs you don't need the AP. They're never going to make their 6-up pretty much. And during 2 turns of the game, Tactical Doctrine, he's got a -1 AP, so then the orcs get no save at all. And with 3 shots apiece at strength 5, oftentimes getting, and plus exploding 6s and sometimes exploding 5s with a strat, he has no problem wiping a squad of 10 orcs with fire from 10 intercessors. So it can be brutal. Pretty much my orcs just evaporate off the field if they're not in a side transport. All right, well, there we go. I think we are finished. All right. If you guys are ever starting a new Space Marine army, heavy intercessors with the Hellstorm bolters are just awesome. Yeah, master crafted would be damage 2 usually, or +1 damage. All right, well, let's set these guys up on a little spinner here. Necron Royal Warden has a relic Gauss Blaster. Whoa, sounds pretty good. Try not to handle the parts of these guys that are still wet with ink wash. Alright, you guys ready to see the finished Aberrants? Start this thing spinning and get a good little camera view on them. There we go. Alright, well, this is the finished squad. Aberrants and the Abominant. Can't wait to use these guys with my Twisted Helix, though actually I call it the Cult of Transcendence, but I use Twisted Helix rules. And I'm sure we'll be getting these guys in a game on stream pretty soon. Going to be playing pretty much every Tuesday and Saturday that I can find an opponent, which I've got quite a few lined up, so it should be fun. Got a Goliath for them? Yeah, I have 3 trucks and 3 rock grinders, so I'm sure I can find transports for them. But I'm kind of tempted to put them in Deep Strike. Seems like they can come in 8 inches away, and that's a pretty decent shot at that charge. But not guaranteed, so maybe trucks is the way to go. I have 1 GW Goliath truck, and I also have 2 what would you call them, proxy trucks that are made from like toy dump trucks that I'm very proud of. I want some GSC Neophytes for my conversion bits for guard. Yeah, that sounds fun. I like how the Neophytes basically are wearing like space suits, and it feels like it kind of expands the 40k universe to see what a 40k spacesuit might look like. Although there's got to be a whole variety of spacesuits in 40k. Stands to reason. All right, well, thanks for chatting, everybody. Really had fun tonight getting these finished, and we did the whole batch in 3 streams. So maybe make cultists or Salvar chemdogs from their bodies. You could also check out the Hive Outcasts from Necromunda. They might also work well as kind of like civilian clothing. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Tune in for the game tomorrow if you get a chance, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And see you next time.